Thanks for spending your Tuesday afternoon with the Healthy at Home webinar. I am going to introduce our speaker today, Amanda Lambert. I'm super excited about this presentation. It's called Living Alone as You Age, Ensuring Safety and Combating Loneliness, which I think everybody can relate to on some level, even if you don't live alone. Sometimes you still need to know these things. So Amanda Lambert is a geriatric care manager and consultant with over 20 years of experience working in the field of elder care. Amanda is also the co-author of 3 books on aging. The last 2 are Aging with Care, Your Guide to Hiring and Managing Caregivers at Home, and the other book is Choose Your Place, Rethinking Home as You Age. She is also on the state board of AARP. Amanda's passion is helping elders live their healthiest and happiest lives possible. I like that. All right, Amanda, thank you for being here, and I'm going to hand the time over to you.
Great. Thank you, Paige. I really appreciate being here today. And I think about this subject a lot. Yeah, I think about safety and living alone and social connection, especially in light of what was a really difficult sort of shutdown during the pandemic, which I think affected people who are living alone disproportionately. And many of those people really suffered. People who were in assisted living or living alone and didn't feel like they could go out. So I have been thinking about safety kind of in broad terms, and I am going to hit some points pretty hard because I think they're that important. So I wanted to start with 2 stories. Both of them are true. The first one is about a client of mine who has since passed, but he was a World War II veteran, and he was a paratrooper. He lived independently, but was starting to get frail and living independently in senior living. And we really encouraged him as he started to get more frail. We told him he needed an emergency pendant. You all know what that is. Emergency pendant will call somebody if you fall. If you don't respond, they're great. So he agreed to it. Well, he fell and he broke his hip. And guess where his emergency pendant was? Hanging on his lamp. And the sad part about this story is that he laid there for 24 hours without anybody finding him. He was calling out to people because he did live in congregate housing. They were able to repair the hip and he was able to live a couple of years. But I wanted to tell that story because we are going to talk about emergency response systems. My second story happened to me today. So this is a recent story. I'm a big hiker. I went on a hike with a friend this morning. I knew I had this webinar at 2 o'clock. So I'm coming down the trail and I trip on a rock. I went down flat, right? Just like flat on my front. You know, if anybody here has fallen, you know how quickly it happens. So you don't really have time to think about it. And I do backpacking. I do pretty strenuous stuff. And I had some cuts and some bruises, but I didn't break any bones. And I have to say, I think the reason for that is because I take falling very seriously and I take my bone density very seriously. So I wanted to start with those 2 stories to hopefully get your full attention on what we're about to talk about. Safety when you're living alone covers a broad range of things that you can do. Can you ensure your safety 100%? Of course not. All you can do is try and reduce risk. So reducing risk when you live alone, if you can do everything that you can to reduce risk, I mean, the rest of it is really up to chance, right? I mean, you can lock your door, you can do all of those things. So I wanted to start with falls. And the reason I wanted to start with falling is because falling is catastrophic for older people. It's the leading cause of disability and death in the state of Utah. And so for you to stay safe, for you to have the best chance of recovering from a fall, you have to have an emergency response system if you're living alone. As much as you may not like it, you know, there are pendants that go around your neck. You know what? You can tuck them inside your shirt. If you're a little bit more high tech, you can wear one of the new Apple Watches, which has fall detection. emergency pendants are really, really important if you live alone, because if you fall and you break something or you lose consciousness, somebody has to be notified to come get you. The paramedics, you can put in several phone numbers, you can put in your family, a friend, anyone, put in 911 and somebody will respond. So I wanted to start with emergency response systems because I think they're that important when you live alone. Even, if you're in good health like I am, even if you feel confident, things happen. And falls can be really dangerous for older adults. And so to kind of pivot from the falls, when you do fall, and let's say you do break something, your chances of recovery are much, much better if you have strong bone density, if you had good endurance, good flexibility, good muscle strength to begin with. So I would say one of the most important things you can do is to improve your overall physical health so that if there is a fall or if there is an accident or if you have a chronic medical condition that's exacerbated, you can recover more quickly. I'm sure Aging Services has programs for exercise. I would assume, exercise is a really great way to connect with other people. Just make sure you check with your doctor first, if there are any contraindications to the kind of activity that you want to do. Walking is great, especially if it's not too hot. Those kinds of things really make a difference. I see it every day in my practice. The people that have taken better care of themselves recover from accident and illness more quickly. So the other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of safety, there are the usual things that I think that people consider, like keeping your doors locked, not, making sure that your important documents are safe. One of the things I like to talk about is advanced directives, which I'm assuming most of you are familiar with, but an advanced directive is a simple document. In Utah, it's really great because you don't need an attorney. You can fill it out with your physician, or you can fill it out with a friend, the person that you plan on making your healthcare power of attorney. You can print it off online, really easy. The importance of advanced directives is if you are unable to speak for yourself, let's say you have a fall, you get ill, something happens, you want to be able to have a trusted person be able to speak on your behalf. So advanced directives, critical at any age. Actually, anybody over the age of 18 should have an advanced directive. And I don't know, maybe Paige, you can answer this, if there's anybody at Aging Services that can help with advanced directives. I don't know if you all do that, but
I don't know of anybody in particular, but I know that we would have resources if someone wanted to contact me and say that they had that I would definitely be able to help them.
okay. And probably the most logical person that people choose is an adult child as their healthcare power of attorney. And you can sit down with that person and fill that out. So I think advanced directives are really important for safety. I also think that not falling for scams is really critical. And you may have attended, I don't know if you have had some webinars on scams. Believe me, I've almost fallen for scams. I mean, I'll get an email or a text, from Apple or from T-Mobile or from Social Security or for somebody saying, there's been a problem with your account, you need to call us, you need to email us. Scams are incredibly dangerous. These people are highly professional. They are targeting older people. I mean, they have sophisticated software that can just target you. They know if you live alone. They know how old you are. They know where you live. So if you get an email or a text from anybody that looks authentic, they're not. They just aren't. Just, if you're in doubt and you're anxious about it, call them. Just call the company to find out. And, chances are they're going to say, no, we never text. We never email. We don't do that. So be really cautious when it comes to anything online as well. Like if you see a pop-up on your computer and it says, oh, you have a computer problem, call us and we'll fix it. No, just shut your computer down and come back another time. when we talk about computers, I don't know if all of you have laptops or iPads or smartphones. My opinion is no matter how old you are, having a smart device is really important. It's important not only for your safety, but it's important for social connection, to keep up on what's going on, to find out what's happening with your family. A smartphone in particular, like like an Apple phone or an Android, it is a really good device to have with you. I'm not saying that flip phones are bad. They're just limited in terms of what they can do. Um, my mom and dad always had flip phones, and honestly, I can never figure them out. They, they were, to me, they were so hard to use compared to a smartphone. So I would say take a class. I mean, I think AARP offers tech classes. You can get those online. I don't know if Aging Services does. Learn how to use technology. I know it can be really frightening at first, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is just so complicated. But once you get the hang of it, honestly, you'll just never go back. It opens up the whole world to you. You can join meetup groups that have similar interests. There's just you can get on AARP's website, which has just amazing wealth of information, local as well, local activities, movies. I mean, yeah, it's the only way to really, I think, stay connected if you're homebound or if you're having problems connecting with other people in person. The other thing that I would say about safety is, the medical system or our healthcare system is very fragmented and can be very frustrating and very confusing. And I think despite that, it's really important to have a physician that you have a lot of trust in, I think a geriatric physician is best. That doesn't mean that a primary care physician is not a good physician for older people. But if you can find a good geriatric physician, and there are lots of them in the Salt Lake Valley, I don't know how many of them are taking new patients. You need somebody to be your partner in your healthcare. And I think the reason that's so important is I don't think it's valuable to have somebody tell you what to do, take this medication. I think what's valuable is to question, like if your doctor says, I want to put you on a new medication, ask why, ask if there's an alternative, ask about the side effects. If you take an interest and if you actively engage in your own healthcare, you will feel better mentally and you will feel better physically. And I know that during, especially the beginning part of the pandemic, a lot of people, and this has been in the national research has shown that people really avoided going to clinics. So they didn't do a lot of their preventative care, which turned out to be, pretty bad in some cases. You need your eye care. You need your hearing care. You need to follow and keep up on any kind of chronic medical conditions that you have. Everything that I'm talking about is sort of the foundation of the kind of support that will help you stay safe and happy and healthy. And I'm not saying that you should go to the doctor all the time, but what I am saying is, especially if you're on Medicare, I mean, Medicare pays yearly for a preventative visit with your primary care physician. I don't know if everybody knows that, but so basically you can go to your doctor, it's 100% covered. They will do all of the labs. They'll give you a basic depression screening, cognitive screening, talk to you about how you're feeling, ask you if you've had any falls, talk to you about your support system. And I just think it's vital to keep up on your healthcare because it will come around later if you don't. And along with that, I think people struggle, especially as they get older. It's hard to sort out all of the competing information about healthcare. One day one thing seems good, and then another day it's not good for you. I still think that there are basic foundational um, sort of principles of healthy aging. And of course, this is Paige's, area of expertise. So I don't mean to step on your toes, but, I think there are um, basic dietary principles that you can follow that will help your healthcare. Staying hydrated, big issue for older adults, really big issue. I mean, my mom was always getting dehydrated because what happens is when you get older, you lose your thirst mechanism. You may forget to drink. So staying hydrated, movement is so important. We talked about that earlier. If you're feeling uncertain about how to move, if you can, and if your insurance will pay for it, if you can work with a physical therapist for a couple of months, they can do wonders, with helping you with your balance and your strength and your endurance. An occupational therapist, if you're feeling, that you're having some mobility issues, an occupational therapist can help with that as well. So I think, making those a part of your everyday life, and it takes time. I mean, it does. It's like, I always tell people it's a part-time job. Okay, your health is a part-time job. If you look at it that way, you're not going to not show up for work. I'm sure that all of you are very responsible, committed people. So you have to show up for your own health. Because if you don't, somebody else will take charge of it, and you just want to be in control, and you want to feel healthy and happy. As sort of a segue into the loneliness factor, I think before the pandemic, people kind of talked about loneliness and social isolation, but then when the pandemic hit, it was like suddenly it was the topic of conversation, because what we had was basically a real live experiment on what happens to people when they're isolated, when they can't get out. And actually, for people who were living in their own homes, not in assisted living or nursing homes or senior living, they did a little bit better because they had the freedom to come and go. Both my parents lived in independent senior living in Sugar House during the pandemic, and they were prohibited from leaving the building unless it was for a medical appointment. The dining room was shut down. The activities were shut down. So every bit of social, we couldn't visit unless we were picking them up for a medical appointment. So what we found out through this unanticipated experiment across the country is that there was a huge increase in depression and anxiety. So the message with that is that being isolated and not connecting with other people is damaging to your mental health. And I don't know I'd love to know what everybody's living situation is and what the challenges are that people have in connecting with others, because there are challenges. There can be medical challenges, transportation. There are all kinds of barriers, but even if you talk to somebody on the phone, if you're tech savvy and you can do a video conference or FaceTime, I think most people know what FaceTime is. At least my mom was able to FaceTime with her granddaughter, which really meant something. So there are ways without necessarily having to get in your car and go somewhere that you can stay connected. And honestly, it's the same as the physical health idea that it's your job. It's your job to stay connected. And we know that some people are more introverted. I mean, there were some people that loved the pandemic. They're like, oh, great, I don't have to go out and be with people, and then there are other people who are more extroverted, who it was just devastating because they couldn't go out and see people. And then there's everybody in between. So I'm not suggesting that if you're an introvert, you have to make yourself highly anxious. But I think we all have to step outside our comfort zones a bit when it comes to people, because chances are really good you're going to feel a lot better if you do that. If you just make yourself talk to somebody, if you live in a congregate housing setting, now everybody's getting together again, even with masks. you know, if they're game nights or whatever people are doing. I mean, Paige and I were talking before the webinar about AARP. I mean, if you want a good volunteer opportunity, they would love you. They have activities going on all over the state. And so that the opportunities are there. You just have to look for them. And depression and anxiety are very common and treatable conditions. But if you can prevent those from getting a hold, that is probably, prevention is better. And I just think that part is super important. For people who do have problems with depression and anxiety, and it's not an uncommon situation with older adults, consider therapy. Honestly, Medicare pays for therapy. You can do therapy online. All therapists were doing basically, well, it's not Zoom, but it's a virtual therapy. They all went to that because it was too dangerous to have clients in their offices. So you can be in the privacy of your home. You can have a Medicare therapist, and you can talk, you know, about any stressors in your life. You can talk about family conflict. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm a huge proponent of therapy for older adults. I'm not saying that medication doesn't help as well, but medication has the kinds of downsides that therapy doesn't. Has side effects, can cause, you know, it's hard to be compliant. I mean, it's great if it works for you, and I'm not saying you shouldn't try it, but therapy has no side effects. So I would really suggest it, but you do have to have some tech savvy. And here we go again with the idea that, you know, you have to be able to access those. You all are online now, so you obviously have some expertise. So that should be no problem for you at all. The other recommendation that I would have is, to the extent that you can, based on your limitations, is to try new things. And anything really. I got hooked lately on the game that you all have probably all heard about, Wordle, which is a word game. And I do it every morning. And I think, is this helping me? I don't know if it's helping my brain, but I exchange texts and emails with my friends about, oh, what did you think about the Wordle game today? It was really hard, wasn't it? You know? And so we communicate. My brother, who lives in Virginia, we're always texting each other. Wow, did you get that one? I mean, to me, it's like the best combination of trying something new that definitely challenges my brain, but it also brings in the social connection part as well. And trying new things can be intimidating. I'm actually not a game type of person, so it's really hard for me to learn new games. You know, I don't consider Wordle a game. I consider that like a word puzzle. But, you know, if you try new things, we now know, and this has been proven with research, if you try new things, it engages the brain, it improves your mental health. It just has benefits all the way around. And it doesn't really matter what you try. I mean, you could try something on your own, you could try something with somebody else, you could try learning a language, which I know seems really intimidating. So trying new things can be really, really beneficial. And you can meet other people, which is really great. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that I have left out, because I just can't believe how are we doing with time? Can't really tell.
Good.
You got a little
Good
time
with
thing.
time.
Okay, good with time. So I think I would love if there are any questions or comments about what I've talked about.
If you have a question or comment, you're welcome to put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question that way. Anita, Amanda, I have a question. One of the things I think that had me get in touch with you was one of our, I don't know if it was someone who worked for Aging and Adult Services. Anyway, they lived alone and had a choking incident. And, you know, those kind of things too. I mean, I guess the emergency, that would be one way, right? If you had that on you, you could use your phone or your watch or that emergency thing and alert the authorities, paramedics or cops, whoever it goes to. Are there other, I mean, I guess with that,
The emergency response system is the way to go because she was conscious, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
she
she
was
was
able
conscious.
to do she did a Heimlich on like a chair or something and got it
Yes, right,
dislodged.
right. So with the emergency response system, you can hit it yourself. You just push a button and it will alert the paramedics and they'll be there. I don't think there's any better way. I mean, the fact that she knew to use a chair is pretty remarkable.
Right.
I mean, I've taken CPR many times and that's what they teach you, but the fact that she knew that
Yeah.
is
Or
pretty
had
incredible.
the thought to even try it.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
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 And so, and kind of, I guess, sort of to that point, I have a fairly elaborate first aid kit in my house. And I think, you all are probably thinking, well, what do I need a first aid kit for? Because things happen. And it's not that you're expected to treat yourself, but you want to stop the bleeding. If you sprain your ankle or if you do something, you want an ace bandage, I mean, it's not like somebody is going to beam themselves down immediately. So you might as well have, some tools available to help you with that. But my opinion is that an emergency response system is the single most important safety feature that you can have. I don't have a specific recommendation. There are several companies that provide them. I know there's a local company, and theirs actually has GPS on it. And I know many of the newer models do have GPS within a certain range. So if something were to happen to you outside your home, that you can do GPS tracking to see where you are. And I think that, I don't know what everyone's personal situation is, but, one of the other things that I touched on that is really scary for people is dementia. And it's scary to think about, oh no, what if I have Alzheimer's? What if I'm getting Alzheimer's? Because there's no cure and there's basically no effective treatment. And I would say that if you feel like your memory is slipping, you can actually look online to identify when is it normal. I mean, the brain can only handle so much. So there are normal, like forgetting people's names or, gee, I walked into this room and I forgot what I came in here for. All that is normal. But if you're starting to forget some other things, or if you're driving, if you're worried about your driving, then I strongly recommend going in for an evaluation, because sometimes it can be something medical, or it could be a medication side effect. Because when that starts to happen, I think you're just more at risk for injury, and more at risk for something happening that you don't feel prepared to take care of. And have a good friend, have somebody you can call on. Not necessarily your healthcare power of attorney, but just somebody you can, call in and say, hey, I'm not feeling well, or, do you mind coming over, or can you take me to urgent care? Do you know what I mean? So I just think it's good to have good people in your life that you can trust.
Another thing I was thinking of while you were saying this is, and again, it's technology, technology, technology. I know, and there's the negatives to it, but there's so many positives to it. And on iPhones, and this might be true on the other phones as well, you can actually, like my husband can find my phone and theoretically
Mhm.
me by going to a Find Your Phone app. And
Right.
so, especially those who, because I know my dad suffered from dementia, and he got lost. He was in those in between stages and was still driving and didn't get off the highway when he should have. And so he was lost. And had we had that capability, we could have tracked him and found where he was.
Mhm.
And now it's not just a phone. You can get those little, like they're little coins that you can put in somebody's jacket or pocket or
Right.
car, so that you can always know. And it's not the creep factor, it's the positive factor, right?
Right. Yeah, I have a friend, and I don't recommend this, but I have a friend that got the brand new Apple Watch. She always felt like her heart rhythm was off. She just said, I just really feel like I'm in AFib. I just feel it. It runs in my family. But every time she went to the doctor, they're like, we're not detecting AFib, so go home. Well, she got the watch, and the new iPhone watch or the new Apple Watch detects irregular heartbeat. And so she had evidence. So it kept track. I mean, even when I go out with her, she'll go, "Oh, I'm going into AFib," and then she'll hit her phone, and sure enough, it'll show it on her. I mean, on her watch. And a lot of the technology now is trying to help people kind of self-diagnose, and I think that's a little bit dangerous. Um, but something like, if you have an irregular heartbeat, which some of the blood pressure cuffs will now detect, go see your doctor. Say, "Hey, my blood pressure cuff," I mean, it could be an anomaly, it could be something that's not serious, but go see your doctor and find out. And if you feel like your heartbeat is irregular, you could be having AFib, which is so common now. I mean, it just seems like everywhere I look, somebody's having problems with AFib. So yeah, and if transportation is an issue, there's the GoGo Granddaddy, which is like the easy version of getting an Uber. And I think, you do have to pay for it, but it's pretty flawless. I've had clients that use it. And so, they can get rides to the doctor or get rides wherever they want and then get picked up later. So, consider that as well. Don't let transportation hold you back.
And of course, Aging and Adult Services has Rides for Wellness, where
Oh,
we'll
you
take
do?
you to.
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
like to doctor's appointments?
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
good to
We're
know.
that awesome.
you
Yeah.
are that
I know.
awesome. That is
Yeah.
great. So there's literally no excuses.
Well, and again, a lot of people don't realize. I mean, it's not just for those who live alone, but we're that person that's secretly living with you. We have a lot of resources, and a lot of people just don't know the many resources that are offered. But I didn't know about GoGo Granddaddy. I'm going to look that up. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because if you don't have a smartphone, then it's really you can't order an Uber. So this is just you call. I had a client who was in her 80s. She was pretty tech savvy, but she still preferred. She basically calls a phone number. She tells them when she wants to be picked up. They pick her up. They take her. She calls them. They bring her back. She doesn't have to use her phone, um, which is a lot easier.
Isn't that how we used to do taxis back in the day?
That's how we used to
Yeah.
get. See, everything comes back.
I
full
know, it's
circle,
all right.
right?
It's right. Full circle.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to just mention that I kind of glossed over when it comes to falls, because I'm so fixated on those, is to make sure that your living environment is clutter free. That you've got like wires out of the way. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it's super important. The more stuff you have on the floor, the easier it is to trip and fall. So if you can, declutter, clear things out, make a nice pathway for yourself wherever you need to go, put a bathroom light in, for getting up at night. Yeah, I work for a company where I get questions, from community users. It's a national company. And the question I got today was, my dad has to get up every 5 minutes and pee, and he's been falling. And I thought, why is he getting up every 5 minutes to urinate? Obviously there's a problem there. He could have a urinary tract infection. I mean, I think you just have to look at things and go, that's not really normal. There's some sort of underlying medical problem, and it becomes a cascading event. He gets up so frequently during the night that he falls. He's at more risk for falling. So yeah, and urinary tract infections, just a whole nother really common problem for men and women as they age, really hard to detect sometimes. So just stay up on those things. I mean, you'll be happy that you did.
Any other questions? Anybody have any comments or thoughts that they would like to add out there? You can unmute yourself or use the chat. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I have found this to be very helpful, Amanda. I never really thought about the emergency response thing. I'm going to make sure that I know my mom has the Apple Watch, and she's actually taken a tumble, and it did come on and say, "Hey, did you fall?" It's done that for me as well because I fall.
Yeah,
And
I know.
yeah,
We all seem
uh,
to be falling lately.
and, you know, I think that, I mean, I appreciate your point. I think it's really easy to think, oh, well, I'm not frail, I'm not you know, I'm not going to fall. And when you trip over your slippers that you've left in the pathway right next to your bed, the best of us fall. The most athletic
Yes.
person falls. And, and those are good, very good points to make. But that emergency thing, it just nowadays, I mean, there's the positive and negative with all this technology stuff.
Mhm.
Let's take advantage of all the positive, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate you talking about exercise. I talk about it all the time, and they don't want to hear it from me. They don't want to hear it from me anymore. So thank you for mentioning that and the hydration. All good points. And it's always nice to hear it from credible sources. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I really shouldn't use, and maybe this is the problem, Paige. We shouldn't use the word
Oh,
exercise.
no, God, no.
I know
Yeah.
it's just like movement, any
Yeah,
kind of movement,
movement. Yeah.
walking, a little yoga, a little stretching, a little bit of anything is better than nothing. And I think exercise just conjures up this big aerobic
I
class
know.
or some kind of like
Yeah.
massive. It doesn't have to be that. There are great chair exercises where there is no risk of falling and you can do all kinds of things. So yes, I don't know
Agreed.
that people will hear it any better from me. We should just stop using the word exercise.
Well, you know, I try to say movement, and it's been, you know, years that I've have noticed that when I say the word exercise, people glaze over, and so I was like, I need to use a different word, and they're catching on that when I say movement, I mean exercise. But yeah, any kind of movement.
They're yeah, pretty on to you.
That's right. They're like, don't believe her. She's just talking about
We
exercise.
know. That's
Anyway,
great.
I really appreciate you being here today. This is
Oh,
super
of course.
valuable information.
Anytime.
Thank you. We hope to have you back sometime. Good luck with all that you're doing, and thank you for doing all that you're doing. It seems very, very beneficial. And then for everybody who's on the call, I wanted to remind you that we are taking the month of July off from Healthy at Home webinars. We will be back on August 9th, and we'll send out reminder emails. August 9th, Anna Smythe is doing from Mindfulness Utah. We'll be doing a presentation. So enjoy July, stay cool, keep moving, take some of the thoughts that were given to you today by Amanda to heart, and hopefully do some things that benefit you. Contact me if you have any questions. I'm happy to get you in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with. All right. Thank you so
Great.
much again, Amanda.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks
All
for
right.
coming. Okay.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.